Yates. This is Keshawn. We're doing elastic collisions. And basically, when you have an elastic collision, this means that the energy that you started with and you finish with should be the same. And the energy is conserved, basically. So, basically, this is what happened. We were outside skateboarding, and my friend left his board there, and I was doing some tricks. So my board goes flying into his board, and it has an initial velocity of 5 meters per second. As you see, his board, the second board, is at rest with 0 meters per second. My board has a mass of 4.5 kilograms. It hits his board, which weighs 3.7 kilograms. Here you have your collision, and this is where the energy is conserved. And you will have a changed velocity in your first board, this is your final, and you will have a final velocity in your second board. Basically, we want to find the second velocity of, basically the final velocity of the second board. If we want to find the final velocity of the second skateboard, we can take the mass of the first one and the velocity of the first one, and it equals this basic formula. This formula is not complete, and we must rearrange it so that we are left with this. If you want to find the final velocity of the first object, you can use it using this formula. Almost similar to the first formula, you have the velocity initial on this side of the first object, but then this is what you have after you have the mass of the first minus the mass of the second, all over mass of the first plus the mass of the second. We are plugging our numbers in. So the initial velocity of the first object is 5 meters per second. Multiply that by the first mass minus the second mass, 3.7 kilograms. Make that go over mass of the first, and it will be added to the mass of the second. I will be back with the answer. Okay, so this is the final equation. I plugged in the numbers. As you can see, the final velocity of the first object, this is showing that the object has slowed significantly. Okay, that's around by, we're going to round to the nearest hundredth again. This is the new velocity for the first object. As you can see, its velocity has decreased from 5 meters per second to 4.9 meters per second. The formula for the final velocity of the second skateboard can be found using the velocity of the first one multiplied by 2 times the mass of the first skateboard. You can put this over mass of the first skateboard, add it to the mass of the second skateboard. This is your final formula. At this point, what we want to do is plug in our numbers that we already have. Final velocity of the second skateboard is equal to first velocity being 5 meters per second. You're going to multiply that by 2 times the mass of the first one, which you will see is 4.5 kilograms. All of this will be over the mass of the first one, which we just said was 4.5 kilograms. And that will be added to the second one, which is 3.7 kilograms. Now all we're left to do is solve. As you see, put it in the calculator. This is what you'll be left with as your final velocity. So simply write it on the board. And we will round it to the nearest hundredth as 5.49 meters per second. This equation, now that we have finished all equations, here's what we're left with. We have found our unknowns. We know that our first mass is 4.5 kilograms. The mass of the second object is 3.7 kilograms. The velocity for the first object is the initial velocity is 5 meters per second. The final velocity for the first object, 0.49 meters per second. A drastic drop. This is the initial velocity for the first object, and for the second object, sits at 0. The object was at rest when it was hit. After it is hit, it now has a final velocity of 5.49 meters per second.